Hello, Megan.
Hello, Michelle.
Welcome to the Spicy Brain Podcast,
Podcast.
where we are navigating neurodiversity with curiosity, joy, and
Radical acceptance. Hi, kick.
So welcome to anybody who's new. We're so happy you're joining us and found us. I think we have some like iHeartRadio people that have been joining in recently, so that's kind of fun. I didn't know that was
they've been coming in clutch. Like, who knew?
Who knew? That's amazing. Well, good job if you're one of those people. And those of you guys who are returning, we love you so much. We love our community. We get so much feedback every time, and it just makes us want to keep doing these. So I definitely wanted to pass it over, though, to you, Meg, because I know that usually we start with a story because we're always going through a book, right, usually. Yeah. And so we go through a book. We kind of go chapter by chapter, and we often start with the topic or a story or something, and then we kind of dig into that brain of yours or mine, any neurospiciness that's going on. You specifically, I think, have like alphabet soup you might identify with, but most recently we've kind of been doing ADHD. We're going to keep with that theme, but kind of veer a little bit broader with this book. But I know you had a couple things you wanted to talk about before we get going.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of check in with everybody and let you know that like we're sort of trying some new things in the back end of the podcast. So I have really talked with Michelle about wanting to become an equal partner in the producing of the podcast, because up until this point, you guys, Michelle has been amazing, and she goes through and reads the books and takes all of the notes and works through all of the meaty Tamara Rosier stuff. And I mean, she's been just absolutely incredible. And when we first started this venture, it was really hard for me to imagine having the capability to do that. And I also didn't have the confidence. And this whole process this last year and a half, and I'm going to get emotional, Michelle, because this whole process has just, it has blossomed me in a way that I don't think I could have anticipated. And I feel so much more myself, and I feel like I'm owning my ADHD, and I'm not apologizing for it as much. And I just feel so much more confident because of us just talking about it. That's all we've had to do. Just talk about it.
Yeah.
And it's really
be curious about it.
Be curious. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And, so there's someone in my life right now who I love dearly, who's going through a diagnosis and just learning about it. And I listen to them really being down on themselves about their ADHD and just hating parts of themselves. And I recognize that. And so I see how far I've come in that, like, I'm just starting to love myself and love my ADHD and be like, you know what? Yep, that's what happened. Yep, I ADHD'd. I daisied all over that, you guys.
Daisy the pug has ADHD, we believe, and we're thinking that that's your spirit animal, right?
And so for those who are new, like that's my way of saying I ADHD'd all over the place. I daisied all over the place. So long story short, I feel I wanted to take this opportunity to listen to the book with Michelle and have an active part in kind of discussing and like how we're going to talk about it, because like I'm not, while I'm a step parent, the day-to-day parenting is not something I have to do. However, I do feel strongly about parenting your inner child. And so I think it's kind of a cool thing where we're sort of trying this new structure. So let us know what you think about it. We're always interested in the feedback, and it's your feedback who's been really, really helpful for us in this process. So thanks,
absolutely,
guys.
Yes, thank you. And okay, so this does bring us to the book, though, Meg.
Yeah.
So the book is called The Essential Guide to Raising Complex Kids with ADHD, and it's Elaine Taylor-Klaus, and she is a PCC and a CPCC. I should have looked that up. I don't know what that is, actually. But the foreword was done by the book we first started with, which was Driven to Distraction. And so the foreword was done by an MD, Edward Hallowell. And so anyway, so Elaine Taylor-Klaus.
Michelle, patient-centered care.
Patient-centered
Maybe.
care. Okay, great.
What's the other acronym?
CPCC.
Clinical Pathology Certificate Course.
Okay.
It's an educational course to help individuals understand and interpret medical reports. Or
Okay.
potentially more common, like specific organizational names or processes. Okay, cool.
So I think basically has a little more familiarity with all of the diagnoses piece, but the idea of this book is really about complex kids, not just ADHD. So I wanted to kind of go over all the things that she lists at the beginning to say, this is for you if, right?
Yeah.
If you have a kid who has ADHD, anxiety, learning disabilities, sensory processing, oppositional defiance issues, autism, depression, detachment, Tourette's, and then even any metabolic issues like juvenile diabetes, celiacs, food allergies, because all of these things make parenting the things that you would always developmentally want to be helping somebody be ready for. And I'm trying to get away from the word normal, but developmentally be ready for that. This could influence that, but that it's also a chronic thing that they're going to be dealing with the rest of their lives. And so the idea is that you need to help them learn how to manage those chronic things that are going on, right? Whether they're brain-based or metabolically based that they're going to have to deal with. So I wanted to bring that up because I thought that was interesting difference than other books we had done that were just ADHD.
Yeah, and what I really appreciated listening to is that, the very first thing I wrote down with her was she said, you can't eliminate your kids' complex issues. And she really went, when you were stating that list of things, she said, okay, these are all brain-based disorders. And I appreciated that phrasing because, as many of you longtime listeners know, and if you're new, I struggle with the word superpower and people telling me that ADHD is a superpower because in a land of magical, everybody, it can just be their own person. Yes, me being ADHD would be a superpower. But the reality is that we live in a neurotypical world that is confined to this very specific set structure of habits and routines and expectations. And so for me, it's really important to help parents and yourself understand that this is actually a disability in the society we live with. If our society was different, it would not be a disability. But the society that we live in and the reality we are in, somebody with these complex issues has a disability. So I think it's such an important important point that she makes that made me feel hopeful for the book, like listening to her, and hopeful for like what she could bring to this topic. Which also reminds me, and it brings us that, like, when we're talking about this specific book, you and I we're just reading one chapter at a time, so we can kind of get our sense about what the chapters are. Yes. And so I'm going to have a lot of opinions, folks, and they are not based in the full reality of the book. They're just my initial thoughts. So, don't come for me if you read ahead. I am fully okay with saying after the fact, like, you know what, I was wrong. She great. She did like this. These are just the thoughts I'm having as we're going along. Like, I hope we're going to hear about this, or I'm wondering, and sometimes I don't always say those words because I'm ADHD and I sometimes am an all or nothing type person. So
that's so, when you said the word disorder, it actually, or disabled, it made me think of why we call it disability, right? And I think it is the way I interpret it internally. And again, we're not professionals, right? We're just sisters. But the way I interpret it, and our grandmother was wheelchair bound. So I always think of it as a disadvantage. It's like we're trying to give somebody the same advantages. Like, if I can walk up the stairs, the ramp, I mean, I remember for many years, it was in the 70s and there were no ramps. So I remember our family literally picking up her wheelchair and having to carry her upstairs to go to dinner or go to wherever. And we didn't always have an elevator. And so sometimes it was multiple floors, but we wanted to get her out and get her involved in the community because she was home a lot because she couldn't get out.
Well, that was, that would have been
she couldn't drive herself because her hands were so crippled and she didn't have, there was no power wheelchairs back then. And all of these things that I think were just trying to give her the same advantages because her brain was completely, she did not have a brain-based disorder. She was like the most on top of it person you'd ever meet, but physically she had the disadvantage. So,
and that would have been pre-American Disabilities Act.
Yeah.
So there wouldn't have been as many federal protections. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she could not get into on campus. Like we would take her places because our mom worked at the university, and we would take her to places, and we would literally be carrying her and her wheelchair upstairs. Yeah.
Wow. I didn't. So you guys, just for you guys knowing, like I wasn't born yet at that point, so
no,
I didn't know. We called her Busha. That's the loving
our Polish
term.
side. We have our Portuguese side and our Polish side. We got the spicy and the kielbasa. I don't know, but yeah.
Because everyone knows kielbasa ain't spicy.
Not spicy. No spiciness.
Well, and you're reminding me too about this idea of this disadvantage. And one of the things that she had said in the book was that parents tend to worry about the future for their kids.
Yeah.
And something about that stuck with me. It was like, oh, okay. So they might be well-intentioned, right? Like parents are always well-intentioned on this front. But because they're worried about our future, they know the kind of world that we're going to have to live in. They're trying their best to help us navigate that. And if you don't have a disability, like a difference, and you're trying to help a kid navigate that and you don't understand them, or maybe you do have an undiagnosed disadvantage because most likely it's hereditary and you know, it was passed along by either you or your co-partner.
Yeah.
There's this idea that like you're worried about the future. And I think that as a person who has ADHD, thinking about reparenting also my inner child, I have to start like thinking about how did I as a young kid worry about the future? Because I picked up on that.
You picked up on their worry.
Yes.
I don't know that you were worried. I mean, I remember you as a kid. You were like you were in your best life. Like
I was.
In your little beating to your own drum.
I fluttered around. It was great.
So I do want to give kind of people an idea though that what this book goes through is helping parents or partners, right? Or maybe ourselves with our inner child. There's an impact model that she goes through. And so the idea is that eventually we're learning to decide what's important, gather information, set a plan, take an action, right? These are all very difficult things to do if you're ADHD. Even to listen to me right now is hard.
It's true.
Expect changes to the plan. So expect it's not going to go exactly perfect. And then she says for the parents, take care of yourself in the process. So you've got to make sure that, you know, you understand a couple things. And the first chapter is sort of interesting. It talks a lot about shoulds, like we're shoulding all over ourselves. And so the first thing is kind of just recognizing what the issues are. And then the second part of the book, eventually, as we get into other chapters, is explaining how to use this model, this impact model. And then eventually taking action and modifying and figuring out, evaluating what's going on and what you need to change. So I just putting that out there for any neurotypical people. And if you aren't neurotypical, then you can just skip past that part and come back now. So good.
Michelle, I just had a realization about books.
Oh.
I'm taking you on a tangent and we're going to go for just a second.
Go.
Okay. So as I was listening to this, I wrote down, like, I have these silly notes, you guys, and you're going to laugh because Michelle has like these like awesome notes, like all written out on the note app. And I literally am in like a Sudoku book where I was like listening to it while I'm doing a Sudoku. And I wrote down my notes in the page, in like the margins. I was listening. I wrote the most notes during the prologue that was read, and then during the first chapter I listened, but like I didn't have a lot to write down because it was a lot of lists and a lot of comparing and contrasting, and it's providing the thesis up front, which I understand that, and that's pretty typical. But like for me, I just don't process information that way.
Yeah.
And
You're very
again,
story based, right?
I am, and I totally get it. Like this book is written for parents and probably neurotypical people, and so but it just hit me that that's probably why I've struggled to read in general, because like usually it's like especially if it's academic based or whatever, it's like all of this. The amount of information they listed those 6 things,
Yeah.
and my guess is that she's going to have a chapter for each one of those things,
Probably. Yeah.
but if you put it all in the very first chapter, you've already overwhelmed me and it's too much. And I don't even want to go on to the next chapter because I'm like, this just seems like way too much information. However, I did have hope.
Okay.
Because she specifically said that you can use this book however you need to use it. She says, yes, I recommend that you read it from top to bottom. Okay. But if you need to read one chapter or move around or switch around, whatever you need to do, she's like, I understand that. Do what works for you.
And I think that's true with our podcast too.
This is true.
Skip ahead, whatever you want, whatever you need, whatever works for you that day. We totally get it. So in this first chapter, she talks about these 6 challenges. So again, another list. So we could probably just like take it a little bit, see how far we get with it today. So don't feel obligated, Meg, for us to do all of it. But there's,
and I also won't
challenges.
feel obligated. I won't feel obligated to have a thing to talk about with each of them.
Right.
Taking the pressure off myself.
Taking the pressure
last
off.
Time.
Okay. I think I have a thing to talk about with each of them, so no problem, because I am
Fabulous.
parenting a complex child and have lived with you. So
that's true. Now
I've got examples.
If my dog is ADHD, does that mean I'm parenting a complex child?
You are.
Daisy, I love you. Okay. As she's like snoring over there.
You know she's been the hardest dog.
Oh, it's true.
For you. Yes.
It's so true.
Ever, right? Okay. So
yeah.
So the first thing is I wanted to read this quote because I thought it was really good. It's she puts it out, and it's Thich Nhat Hanh, who I don't know who that is, but we could look that up as well.
I thought that you were like trying to say take, and then you combined 2 words and it became teak.
Teak. I think it's T-I-K Nat and then Khan. But here's the quote, and this is actually a really good one. So some of the situations and accidents that cause us the greatest suffering, when seen objectively, do not look very big. But because we don't know how to manage them, they feel enormous. And I say that like they feel enormous as a parent when you don't know what you're looking at. Like when you don't know what you're seeing and your kid is all over the place and everybody in the world is telling you they should be this or they should be that. And you're putting all that pressure on yourself because so much of, and she says it in the book at some point, but like so much of our own identity as parents, dog parents, people parents, whatever, is based on these shoulds.
Yeah.
Like when you tell a dog to sit, they should sit.
That's true.
Right? And if they don't, then what does that mean about you as the parent, the dog parent, right? It means something about you, which maybe does or doesn't. I don't know, right? But most of the time, I think it doesn't. If you're doing all the things you know to do, and there's so much that from the time they're born or brought into your life in whatever capacity, there's all this laundry list of stuff that your job is supposed to be doing.
Isn't it like a whole thing about like, well, you should be breastfeeding or you should there's like, people have just from the first moment they're born.
Producer note on my end, she said the should start from pregnancy.
Yeah.
With the pregnancy police, she says. And I wrote, ha ha. I like wrote it down and I wrote, ha ha, because I was like, that's so funny. Like, I'm going to tell everybody. I'm going to out myself. I had a regular Dr. Pepper. I know.
What does that mean?
Well, you're not supposed to have caffeine. for some reason, right? Like there's
then your child turns ADHD.
It was my fault, right? It's my fault. So, everything
has
about
nothing to do with genetics. It's
right,
it was the Dr. Pepper.
It was the Dr. Pepper. But it's like that. It's like you're, how often are they supposed to be sleeping? When are they supposed to sleep through the night? When are they supposed to be potty trained? When are they supposed to be able to read? Like all these things that are this, developmentally appropriate stuff. And when you have a complex kid, none of it is true. Like none of it happens in the order or the way or whatever. And she says in this book, she says, I hope that parents don't have the first decade of parenting I had. And since I got to this book at 18 years, I think I'm going to say the same thing, but like 2 decades. Like if you have a chance to kind of give yourself some grace with it, some just understanding that all the shoulds, whether it's with your dogs or your kids or your partner or whatever, or yourself, reparenting yourself, it's not, these are things that I think we have to kind of let go of. And that's hard.
Interesting.
It's really hard.
Yeah. Cause like I could see, what I hear from a parent perspective is that you have all of these shoulds that you've been, not necessarily that you want, but that society has put on you.
Yes. And every book, every teacher, every doctor, every friend,
family
every
member,
yes,
has should all over you.
Yes.
And the should is thick and disgusting. But then I think about it from, okay, so now being the complex child who is receiving that should, there's there's a lot of times that I say to myself, I should have done this. I should have done that. So that should has been put on me.
Yeah. Cause that should rolls downhill.
Yeah.
It goes from the parent to the kid. And so it's like having to own that and understand that that's what I did have done to Josh. Like even just today, I was telling you, I need to take a break. I need to check in with him that he's still on his timer to do his stuff. He's 18.
Yeah.
Okay. I asked this morning, would you like me to write you a list? And he's like, theoretically, that might be nice if that appeared. You know what I mean? So, it's still happening, but I said something in a way, and part of what she talks about is like being really careful about your language. So I'm very interested in the next chapters. We're not going to get to that today, but the next chapters are talking about the language we're using and how we can easily trigger somebody with ADHD or with complex issues in the way we should, like it's a should sound. It sounds like they should have done something already. And I just said, well, did you get this in the laundry? I didn't.
You should have gotten this in the laundry. You should have
gotten this in the laundry. And so then his
he
anxiety,
heard it as that.
He heard it as should. I didn't say it as should, but I might as well have. And the anxiety increased, and we got into it where we had to like sit down and do some breathing. You know what I mean? Like and I did that just now, right? So like we've had all this curiosity for a year and a half. You're talking about how great you're feeling, how much better things are going. And I'm like, I'm still in it. Okay. I haven't figured anything out. So I'm excited for this next little journey because I need to be curious about my parenting with this, right? Like I really do, because it's so hard because you don't want to do that to somebody.
And Michelle, maybe we might not get through the whole first chapter for this podcast because, but I'm wanting to be curious right now.
Yeah.
So that happened. What do you do in that situation? Like right now, or like, what would you want to have done differently?
He has to go somewhere at a time that I wasn't aware of. And I had a list of things that I thought he needed to have done because the week is coming and fall is really, really hard for me. And I'm just making sure we're not going to end up with like meltdowns together going forward. But he threw in a piece of information that I either didn't remember. I think I just didn't remember. And I didn't have the ability to be flexible in that moment. And I think it's more just like me not beating myself up about that. Like that's going to happen. Like you're going to have moments where your own personality doesn't quite deal with whatever. Like, I'm not great at really, it's funny, like I'm very good at it in my job, but like personally, it's difficult for me when things are just switched on me or I'm not sure it's coming.
Yeah.
And so I think the two things that were interesting is I stopped a little bit more and I said, let's just sit down. And so that's new.
Wow.
So that's a good thing. So it's good at noticing like what I do better.
Let's just celebrate that for a second, because that's huge.
Yeah. And then also like I'm very verbal with what, like he picks up on like micro nuances of my expressions. And I was like, I think what you were picking up on was that I was stressed because I realized the time frame we had was very different than what I thought. And I had these things that I thought were going to get done, the shoulds. And I'm just needing to regroup. So I'm needing you to just give me a little patience right now while I'm regrouping and just know it's not about you. You know, that you're seeing something, and that's not, you know, what you're seeing is real, but it isn't important for it to stay, you know, like you don't need to hold that because I don't need to stay in that space with this. It's just, I just need a minute to like process it. So I think part of it's that, I really try really hard to like, we rehearse our days a lot. So I know it's coming as much as he knows what's coming.
Yeah.
But one of the things she says in the chapter is like, just be ready for the unexpected, be ready for everything to always be different. And I think that's what's really hard for someone who's neurotypical or more neurotypical or something. I don't know what we want to say, is that it's like, I don't enjoy that. That's not easy for me. That is actually really energy draining for me. So it's hard, right? Because it's not my nature. It's not how I do things. And so I have to like always make space for that. And I think what's hard about it is sometimes it feels like there's not space on the other side, right? Of things, which isn't true. Actually, as I'm learning, there's like a tremendous amount of grace he gives me all the time. And I don't always acknowledge that. So I think it's like,
I was curious, like what you noticed about his interaction when you said this wasn't about you. Like, I'm curious if his language shifted or his body, like, was it different this time around?
Yeah, because we try to like hug it out when we have those moments. We try to just sit and breathe with each other and just give each other like a really like strong hug.
Yeah.
And the first time he wasn't able to because he was still really scattered and all over the place. And when we sat down, and I was like, today.
Okay.
And so the first time I was like, this wasn't about you. I just didn't know what was coming. But he wasn't able to stay with me long enough for me to finish my sentence because he was like already trying to go finish all the things he should have done. And so, and he like really didn't know where to start. I mean, it was like, it completely derailed him. It was like, he was like putting laundry into the washer and he like I think it was like stuff from the washer to the dryer and he didn't know the next step. Yeah. And he's like, I don't know why I don't know the next step. And I was like, it's because you got derailed. It's like, because this interaction derailed you. You're okay. It's going to come back to you, but you just have to like take a minute. So it was like, I was able to see in real time what was happening. I wasn't getting angry, but at the same time, those things are going to happen. Like no matter how much we're going to practice, you're not going to be perfect at this, right? And that's also hard for me. So that's on me. But for him, what I saw when we finally sat down and I said it again, you could see his shoulders relax. You could see him start to breathe slightly more deeply. I could see that his cognitive processes were coming back. And then he was able to describe to me, he's like, I'm in a lot of pain. I had a shoulder, he woke up like he tweaked his neck or something last night. And so he woke up in pain and he's still in pain today. He's like, so everything I'm doing feels like I'm sick, like it's taking longer. So he was able to articulate what was going on for him. And so then I was able to then be curious, I was able to be curious with him. He was able to be curious about himself. And then we could kind of move on. And then he was able to give me the hug. And then we were able to like hug it out and we were able to breathe and look at each other's eyes and be like, okay, we're good and we're good. Okay. Like we're okay. So I'm like, there's no forced hug. Like I don't force him to hug me, but like if we're ready and it's like been an interaction like that, we try to do something like that. Or we try to have physical contact afterwards just to make sure that we're connected again. So yeah, so that's what I noticed today.
Well, I just first off want to thank you for being vulnerable about your process and your experiences, because I think that this is exactly why we wanted to do this podcast for parents. Because, you know, guys, we decided to do this book because of the community. Like, it was community led. It was like people asked us to do this one.
Yeah.
And
not necessarily this book, but they said pick
this
one on
topic.
parenting.
Yeah, this topic. And I think it's going to be so helpful for people to hear your side of it and to hear, like, okay, good, I'm not the only one who's struggling with this.
Yeah.
Because I struggle to parent myself all day long, but I know it's totally different than having another human that you're responsible for. And what I heard from that interaction was that, you know, yes, you had the shoulds in your head, and that I heard that you said you didn't have flexibility, but I also heard that you in real time recognized that an energy had shifted in your kid and were able to take a moment, which I think in the past would have been harder for you. And
yeah, I mean, it's funny. It's like when I'm good, he's good. And when I'm stressed, it's not good, right? Because he senses it from me. And it's really a barometer for me of, like, as much as him, is like seeing what mental state I'm in or how I'm doing. And it was interesting. I think as I go through this more and I talk to other parents who I didn't have a community of parents when I was raising Josh who had complex kids, or at least who acknowledged they had complex kids. I think we did. I think we all had them. Many of us did at the school that he went to, but I don't think people acknowledged it. And so, you know, it's very lonely as a parent. And I remember, like, our mom talking about that specifically with you. It was like, it's very lonely and it's very hard when you feel like you're not meeting up whatever expectations everyone has for your kid and for you as a parent, right?
Yeah.
And so I think one thing I did see from her and from learning from being with you is that I knew pretty early that this was something I was going to have to start thinking about. So I actually started the process of, like, slowing down with Josh when he was about 2.5.
Yeah.
And he was having these, like, you know, and part of one of the things that she talks about in this, there's these 6 different sort of challenge areas. And one of them is emotional management. That's the first one she talks about. And his emotions were so big. And I mean, everybody says, like, the terrible twos, but it was so much that, and I would feel, it wasn't like too much, but it was just intense.
Yeah.
And I would feel myself getting angry, or I'd feel myself, you know, wanting to control it. And that part of me, like, why we had, you know, the loving chair, the place where, like, you know, timeout chair.
Yep.
And I would tell him now, because it's still his favorite chair, which is funny. But
I know it's in his room. It's so
in his
sweet.
room. It's so cute. Yeah. And it's still there, but it's like, he has these memories that are mixed about it. And I was like, man, that chair was as much for you as it was for you as it was for me. Because, like, honestly, like, it was maybe more for me as the parent, because I just needed to chill out. But I remember being in the kitchen with him, and I would just, like, he would just, you know, lose it. And I just remember at one point I just sat down because I was trying to get him to stop doing whatever it was. And I realized how big I was compared to him. And then I thought about being him and seeing me and seeing my face angry and how scary that would be. And I remember just sitting down. And so that is my instinct, not instinct for sure, but that is my trained parenting skill.
Trained behavior.
Trained behavior is sit down first.
Yeah.
And so I sat down in the middle of the kitchen and I just became like a Buddha. I just sat there, like, you know, with my legs crossed, and I just sat there while he had his moment. And eventually he crawled up into my lap and sat there. And I realized, like,
he was so cute then too, when he was that 2-year little old. Oh,
yeah. But
Yeah.
boy, it wasn't cute when he was
No,
having
not
his
when he...
moments. So I think part of what I heard her say in this book, which I just was curious what you would think about it, is how important it is to understand that, like, you just cannot be raising your kid for everyone else, and that you yourself have to give yourself so much credit and grace, because honestly, most parents who have complex kids are trying so hard. And I was kind of curious what you thought about our mom, because like I just think, and this is before like there's any information about ADHD or anything, like no resources really, or help at the time, when you were growing up, or just the beginnings.
Yeah.
What do you think about her thinking about this? Like listening to me talk about Josh and then thinking about yourself being raised by her.
You know, it's funny. We were actually talking about this last night because Mom's staying with us for a little bit. She's been visiting.
Yay.
And she's been so good helping me reminding me to like work on my pages for my children's book.
Yeah.
And so last night I was working on the scene where the mom comes into the room, like little Rosey has been off, and as the author says, like in her own little orchestra, right? There's this idea of like she's got her own orchestra and playing to it, and you don't necessarily know the song that's being played, but they are off on their own world. And Mom comes into the room, sits down with little Rosey and says, like, sometimes your brain holds on to something and can't let it go, right? And Rosey says yes. And she says, okay. And my mom says, you know, I see that in you and I love it. And I recognize it, and I can't remember exact words I say, but like it's basically acknowledging that like I see it and it's okay, and who you are is just perfect. And I have this picture that I've created of the mom holding little Rosey's hand, and little Rosey's kind of like got her eyebrows furrowed, however you say it,
Furrowed,
and and Mom's holding hand, and I show Mom the picture. I'm like, okay, so this is the sketch I'm thinking about, and Mom started tearing up.
Oh.
And I told her, I was like, look, you know, I recognize that as a parent, especially during that time, you had so few resources for me and for my complexities. And you didn't always know how to handle the moments, right? But the one thing that she never did was shame she never emotionally shamed me. She might have gotten exasperated.
Yeah.
She got, you know, we joke. I found a picture of Mom, and she's like got her hand on her face like this, and she's like looking off to the side, like she's just like so.
She's done. She's done for the day.
Done. You know, like every mom knows that. Every
mom.
parent.
Yeah.
And
every
I said,
parent.
Mom,
yeah.
I have this picture because I am going to have ChatGPT help me cartoonize this, because at some point this face will be in this
in there.
And I said, but the difference is that, you know, yes, I was annoying, right? I was exasperating, but you weren't ever worried about me. You weren't worried about who I was fundamentally. And you know, people worried about me all the time. People worried that like there was something wrong with me and that I wasn't okay. And, you know, and those were all people that like, it wasn't their job to understand me. You know, I mean, I think it's different when it's a mom, but I think that as an adult, I can look back on it and say, okay, the reason why I think that me personally, I can have any kind of through line of recovery and becoming stronger is because at the foundation of everything, I had a parent who said, I see you, I love you, I may not know how to help you, but who you are who you are inside, I love and I accept.
Yeah. And I think as you're saying that, the thing, and yes, I agree that is like her gift to us as kids, for sure. I mean, she just really has never asked us to be anything other than we are.
Yeah.
right? And I think that probably is the one thing I will say, if I could have gone back today to do something differently, and probably what I'll think about going forward and be curious with myself about going forward, is that this idea that Josh is going to go off and have his laundry done every week is not important.
Yeah.
And that I feel like I'm training him to do this, or to be part of this neurotypical world. I can show him those things, and yes, he will know how, but eventually he's going to have to decide for himself if it's important, right? And there's lots of ways, like in New York, you just got your laundry done by somebody. It was great. But there's that. But I think, so the shoulds, though, I think, and this is something she says in the book, which I think is really powerful, the shoulds disconnect us from what we really want for our families, for our kids, and for ourselves. And I think what I really want with Josh is a loving relationship, and for him to love himself. And so if there's things that I'm doing, or doing things in a way that are making him doubt that at all, or feeling the shoulds for himself, that's something that is definitely, I'm curious in the rest of this book of like ways that I can kind of maybe handle that differently going forward.
Yeah. And the phrase that I wrote down was, parents worry about the future.
Yeah. We future forward a lot.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know how this connects with you, and but I just think that like he's a capable and incredible human that you have raised, and beautiful and thoughtful, and treats his grandmother with, treats every woman that he meets with respect and kindness. And all of those things, are so beautiful and so instilled in him, that you have given. And you've allowed for family to be at the center of his life, and you've allowed family members to actually help him and to raise him in ways, other ways to teach him the world. Like community, I think, has been at the forefront of what you've done. And I know that you're worried about the future, and he's going to struggle.
I think that's
we live in a neurotypical society. I mean, I'm going to go back to the very beginning. Like we just, we don't live in a world that accepts disability at its core. Right. I hope that this podcast can help start developing more of that. Like I'm practical and realize like we're not going to have some, it's not going to change the world, but if we can change a few people's worlds, that's the most important thing. And I think you're right. Like, I think, the best thing that you can give him right now is, okay, yes, you should be doing your laundry, but like, really, what do you need right now? Like him being able to wake up and say to himself, I'm in pain. So what is that going to mean for today? How is that going to hamper my already disabled brain? And to actually, I mean, because I think I don't ever want to be
And he started
like,
that, which is cool. Like he was
right?
like, it's like I'm sick. It's like everything's taking more energy. And I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so, I mean, like maybe that's, I don't know. I mean, this is just a thought, and this is your kid, so I'm not going to shit all over you. This is just you can tell me, excuse my language, but you can tell me to go f off. Okay. Because this is not a should. But like, I'm thinking that maybe like the list is like, hey, let's check in with ourselves. Like, where are we today? And like, what, maybe it's like, you always used to talk about with him, how am I taking care of my health, my home, my, what are the 4 things you used to say, Michelle?
Mind, body, health, and home.
Right. So are there 4 things, or however many things, that we can check in? Actually, I'm thinking about this for myself too. Are there things that we can check in first thing in the morning, so that we know what kind of brain we have going forward for the day?
Yeah.
Are we in pain? That's got to be the first thing. Because if you're in pain in any way, shape, or form, you're not going to be at your optimal.
Your complexities are going to become more complex.
Yeah. And like, what do we think? I mean, I don't know. I feel like this is what we need to this is what we need to finish with today. And we can move on to the other stuff next time, because we have a lot of meat in this. But like, if we could think through, like, what would those 4 things or 3 things be that, like, I mean, what would it be that, like, I would ask myself, Josh could ask himself at the beginning of the day, let me check in with these things.
Well, I think the
And
first
then
thing
I'll
is,
know.
did I sleep? And he's like, I didn't sleep very well last night.
How
And
did I
was
sleep?
like,
Okay.
Yeah, because if you don't know your sleep level or where you are tired wise, I think that's huge. So that impacts him a lot. I think the other thing is like, what are, we've been talking a lot about self-care, and I liked the idea that self-care could just be good self-talk.
Yeah.
And like, what are the things I need to be saying to myself today? Like, first of all, how am I physically feeling, right? Am I tired? Yep. Am I sick? Am I in pain? And then like, what self-talk things should I be saying to myself today? Because like, what am I anticipating maybe a little bit in my day? I don't know. And I think also like, do you have
I
your
don't
basic
anticipate
needs
my day.
I know.
But
But
so
you should.
no, but what I'm thinking though, I know, right? I should. But maybe that's like it's like the, like the A plus B plus C equals how should I self-talk to myself? How should I self-talk today?
How
right?
What might be helpful?
What might be, yeah. So like, cause I'm thinking like sleep and pain, sleep and physical feelings. Those are the two that I recognize the most. And like, did anything out of the ordinary happen like first thing in the morning?
Yeah.
Maybe like, like, is my routine
off?
It's So we can definitely work our way through this, but like there's something about sleep, pain, and your routine.
So he has been waking himself up.
Yeah.
And because he had to leave earlier today, I got him up. And I think that also he wasn't anticipating that. So then it's like when he's ready for school, he knows that. And I mean, it was still like an hour later than what he would have normally gotten up for school, but it was still not on his
time. Different. Yeah, it was still
different.
So like, I would think like, I mean, and we can kind of play with this, I think, but and maybe what's something we can do this week. I couldn't check in with you about like, okay, how did I sleep? How am I physically feeling? And did my routine at all get did my wake up routine at all get shifted? Because like I'm thinking like, okay, the dog sleep with us. So did the dog wake me up? I might still have slept really well, but like, did the dog wake me up at all?
Yeah.
Or something. And then knowing that, like, okay, so knowing kind of like where we are, how does that then help me with the equaling the self-talk? And like, what do I need to do? Okay, it's sort of like, I think this is what my forecast, my sock forecast was trying to do. It's like, okay, if all of these things have happened, then I know it's going to be harder for me to process things today, or I'm going to be moving slower, or like, okay, maybe it's okay. I'm sorry, I'm thinking in real time, so I'm not formulating as well as I could be, but
no problem.
If I'm in pain or there's a physical issue going on, you know what? I need to give myself extra time to complete tasks and not feel bad about it.
Yeah.
If I didn't sleep well, I may not be able to understand people today, and I'm not going to feel bad about it. If I was out of my routine, I am going to feel completely out of sorts today, and there's just nothing I can do about that. That's okay. And I'm just going to take one moment at a time.
And when you're saying that, it makes me think like, as a parent, that also anticipating that. I know the concept of anticipation is hard if you yourself are ADHD as a parent, but I think the idea of like, there's probably something going on if my kid is acting completely differently.
Yeah.
And I do want to just bring it back a little bit to the chapter, because one of the things she says is one challenge area can be logistics. And so as a parent, you're trying to get somebody to school.
Yeah.
Right. And so this idea, though, that if your morning times or your week afternoons or your school breaks or all those things are harder, it's because, and then they like quote unquote should be, it's like because they're out of their routine.
The routine's changed.
The routine's changed, or you're trying to get them into a routine, right? It's like the morning. You're trying to get somebody into the routine of their day. That's as hard as exiting a routine of their day. So you know what I mean? There's these things that I think are really important as a parent too, to think about. Oh, right. You have to give the kid and yourself more time.
I used to always say whenever Emma would come and spend, like she'd stay over, every once in a while they'd want to, her and dad would want to stay up late and watch a bunch of shows. And I
Yeah.
said, okay, well, we can do that. But we're gonna, like, we have to be all aware that tomorrow we might be tired and we might be grumpier with each other. So are we going to be okay to be kind to each other because we're tired?
Mm,
And we all agreed. And then the next day usually was not an issue.
interesting.
So maybe as a parent, I don't know if this works or not. 'Cause again,
Yep. Well,
talking
you
out of
do
my own
parent. You
ass.
parent her for sure when she's with you.
But like, if you know that if you are aware, like, okay, normally, like the weekends, of course, like their routines off because they're not going to school.
Mm-hmm.
So weekends might be actually a little bit harder for you. Or if you know, like, hey, they've been at grandparents' house and they're coming home, they're going to be out of their routine and it's going to be a really hard couple of days. So, like, hey, give yourself that grace and like don't plan anything for a few days.
Yeah. Or
If
maybe
you
you just
know
need
that
to like
they're
have those microwave meals or
exactly,
order in or whatever. Yeah. Do like give yourself some breaks of things that you normally might do.
don't try to do everything,
Yeah.
like if you normally cook, if you normally clean on a Monday, right? That's your normal cleaning day. And kids have been away at the grandparents for a few days. Know that Monday is not going to be your normal cleaning day,
Yeah.
because you're going to have to prepare for the fact that your kids are going to come back and they're going to have challenges that day. And so you have to be there to be prepared for them.
And you yourself, right? If you
Yeah.
know you've been traveling, the
Mm-hmm.
next day is going to be 2, 3, 4 days might be really hard. I was talking actually with a friend at work who's married to somebody with ADHD, and they hadn't really experienced it before, and I was like, and they were talking about how they went on a trip, their partner went on a trip, and then spouse came back, and the spouse that was on the trip was the ADHD one, and comes back, and then they were like, this week has been like insane, Michelle. And I
Yeah.
was like, yeah. So just so you know, like, I think you can anticipate 4 or 5 days of this with this person. And I'm guaranteeing you by the weekend, when you guys reset, it's all going to be fine. And, and they came back, that next week, and they're like, you were completely right. It was the weirdest thing. It was like it had never happened. And I was like, uh-huh. And you keep the memory as the person who's with them, and the person with ADHD often doesn't. Like I mean, it's not internalized unless it was like some big fight or something, right? But it's
Yeah.
like different, and so it's also hard to be kind of the living memory sometimes of all the experiences at times. Not to
Yeah.
say that you don't remember anything, Meg, but you do. But you often say, like, I don't remember a lot of this or that occurred. So I think it's but the idea of anticipating, right? That
Yeah.
this
Or
is going
just
to be a problem.
even like if, I think of grandparents. I don't know why that's what it's in my head, but like
Yeah.
before they come over, like, hey guys, just remember, like, when we get back, like, it's going to be so great to see you, but we might feel a little off.
Yeah.
It's okay. Or, when they get here, it's okay if we don't feel if we don't feel as
Right.
great as normal. And
Yeah.
I think about, this reminds me a lot about the deployment cycle and the
Mm,
cycle, like the different psychological components that go along with it. 'Cause you're out of your routine. And so,
mm. For the
the
military when they deploy
military, yeah,
overseas. Mm-hmm.
when they deploy, like they psychologically deploy beforehand. Then you guys, they deploy and then they go on with their life. You go on with your own. And then
Mm,
when you come back together, there's this like lovely, like amazing, a lot of emotion. And then there's an immediate crash because of all the emotion and anticipation of it coming back up. And then once you've crashed, you feel like your entire marriage is probably going to fall apart. And really,
mm,
it's just that you're coming back together and trying to figure it out again. And so there's like there are these different stages. And so I'm thinking like,
mm.
you're talking about like summer school or summer
Yeah.
time or
Yeah.
fall breaks. I mean, those always seem to be the hardest. Or like some family comes to visit, like something that's
Mm,
outside of the routine.
yeah.
Like I almost think of it as like when you're working out your body. Like now I've learned like, oh, you do a strong workout, and then day 3 is always the worst day after the workout for your muscles, right? Like that's the day
Yeah.
is it day 2 or day 3? One of
Day
them.
3. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, day 3 is like where your muscles probably feel the worst. So, going into it, I'm doing this heavy workout And if my muscles are sore the next couple of days, I'm not worried because I knew I worked.
Yeah.
We need to start thinking about routine and our lives like that based on based on that principle. Like, okay, when the
Yeah.
routine changes, it might take 2 to 3 days
Yeah.
for us to come back together. And we need to figure out like what is our rhythm? Because let's just assume it's going to be 3 days. Day 3 is
Yeah.
probably going to be the worst. It's because
Yeah.
that's what happens to deployments. It's like day 2 or 3 is always the worst. So
The worst.
think about it because our brain is a muscle. So we're working out the muscle. So maybe it's a similar situation. I have no scientific backing of that. This is just a hypothesis.
But I think the idea that we kind of give ourselves this, I almost like plan it on the calendar.
Yeah.
That this is like, as soon as this happens. And one of the things I was saying to the family was like, I kind of have a rule now of no more than 3 days. And they're like, 3 days of what? I'm like, people staying in our home, because then that's moving in. And now we need a roommate contract. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like after that. So it's like 3 days is the right amount of time. And I think part of it is because it doesn't break your routine so much. After 3 days, you're setting a new routine. And so usually, there's that piece of it. But I think this idea that you're saying, which I really like, is this idea of just kind of like blocking it out.
Yeah.
I'm going to need 3 days to get back in sorts. I'm going to need some alone time for this period of time, or maybe I'm going to need, whatever it is you need to be able to get yourself back into the routine. But also if you have a partner or a kid who, if one of the issues is around emotional regulation, and a lot of these brain-based disorders, that is one of the components of it, then, knowing that the emotions it would be very difficult to regulate emotions. And so thinking about today with Josh, it's like the emotional regulation was hard because he's tired, he's in pain, and he's about to go see people that he kind of is emotionally deploying to go see. So there's like this whole piece of it that trifecta maybe, right? And so if you're finding that you all of a sudden have something imploding in front of you and you weren't thinking, why is this happening right now? Or like, I'm upset that this is happening. It's also being curious as to why it's happening. Because I think as soon as I say it to you, then I'm like, it doesn't feel so unmanageable. And that kind of goes back to that like kind of first quote, which is, some of the situations and accidents that cause us the greatest suffering, when seen objectively, do not look very big. So there was like suffering that was happening today and it felt big, but it actually, it's from something really small, like about the laundry, right? But now, because I didn't know how to manage it, or didn't know how to manage it as well, it felt bigger than it needed to necessarily. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's always the funny thing. People find out that I do theater and I write and all that. So like, let me tell you about my life, because it is the most dramatic thing ever. And what we've learned over the years is that really most people's lives are not that dramatic. It's actually just, it feels more dramatic because in the moment it is dramatic for you, but it's actually not that dramatic. It's not dramatic enough to like be a Lifetime movie.
Right.
But
it feels like a Lifetime movie.
Yes. And the feelings
actually,
are
I don't
valid.
even know. Do they have Lifetime movies anymore? Is that like an old reference? But like overly, just kind of very everyday kind of things that happen, but
like Margot Robbie's not gonna be you in a movie version of you.
No.
Right? Because like
not about the laundry.
Not about the laundry. No. But
I could have gotten an Oscar nomination for it today.
You could have, right? Michelle.
See, yeah, like we both. Yeah, the reality is that it's so important to just understand that nobody knows but you.
Yeah.
I mean, no one's going to be able to give you the right complete answer. We can talk about strategies and all these things, but in the end, you yourself know your kid the best. You yourself know yourself the best. And trusting in that and honoring that is really important. And if you think something feels off, it is.
Yeah.
And
you have the right to stop and just take a moment and sit down on the floor
and redecide.
Yeah.
Also, you have the option to redecide the interaction. You can decide again that I'm going to start this over.
I do this. I mean, Michelle, I talk about repair all the time.
Yeah.
And even Brian and I had that last night. Like we were talking about something and I said, let's start this over again.
Yeah.
And I said the same thing. And I was like, I told him what I wanted to have happen
Mm-hmm.
in the interaction because it didn't go the way that I would have hoped. And so I said, let's start it over again. And we did. And I think that like the one thing I wanted to say about the sleep pain and the routine is that if your kid doesn't sleep well, it can
Mm-hmm.
take 2 to 3 days to get back onto a routine.
Mm-hmm.
If your kid is sick, it can take 2 to 3 days once they've gotten better before things kind of get back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing with the routine. So it's like I think we just need to sort of start thinking about if something has shifted in the kid, in yourself, and you're noticing it, it's valid, it's real. It's not your fault as a parent. It's not the child's fault. It's just telling you it's a symptom that something's going on.
Mm-hmm. And maybe all the shoulds that you are worried about for the future can wait.
Because it has nothing to do with the future. It just has to do with the
Mm-mm.
fact they slept badly or
Mm-hmm.
they're in a
Yeah.
little bit of pain or, it's like you're not like, I just remember like when we got married, somebody told us like someone's advice to us was never say the D word. And I was like, what? Divorce, 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 divorce. Like if you don't say it out loud, then you don't like it holds too much. It like there, it becomes so much more, like it becomes a boogeyman.
Yeah.
Right. And if I'm thinking about divorce, it usually, if the second I start thinking about that, it's because like, oh, it's just a symptom that there's something that we need to talk about.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean we're actually going to get divorced. It just means that like I am frustrated enough that like I have to figure out what's going on. And it's a moment for me to be curious and
Mm-hmm.
decide, hey, what can we be curious about and what something's going on in our relationship and we need to work it out.
Yeah.
And
And
I
I think
think
that's true with our
with the
kids and with
kid,
ourselves,
yep,
right? Like when you're feeling so much. And part of what she says in this, and we'll talk more about it next time, but is this idea of not coming from a place of desperation,
yep.
coming from a place of fear, but coming from a place of inspiration. And like, I think
Because,
inspiration is curiosity a lot,
mm-hmm,
right? Like being curious. And that's how I would define it more. I would say, like, don't come from this place of desperation, come from a place of curiosity. Because as soon as you're curious about something, you're open to solutions. And I have been in despair as a parent and I've been in despair as a human. So I know what that feels like and that idea that we can kind of reframe things for ourselves, hopefully a little bit, and help each other reframe things.
yeah. Because I would imagine that watching me, I know when I'm in those moments of emotional dysregulation,
Mm.
watching me in those moments, I could imagine that people would be terrified from my future.
Well, I was in that space this last week, and I don't know
Yeah.
that you were terrified for me, but you said you felt for me and you knew that I was really in a rough spot, and I was. Like, but
Actually,
I wasn't there forever. Do you know what I mean? But I was
yeah.
like, I was in it, and I just was like, this is all really, really hard right now. And I think that's the other thing too, as parents and as anyone who's dealing with a brain-based disorder, to be like, it's okay to be like, this is really hard today. Like, it's
Yeah.
harder than normal today. This sucks. And I remember telling other people, like, don't have kids unless you really want them.
Yeah.
And people will be like, why are you, like, I am not the Facebook mom. I'm not on Facebook rarely. I'm not there to tell you how great everything is because it is hard.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is he great? Is parenting an amazing experience? Am I so happy I've done it? Yes. But I'm the first person to be like, hey, don't do this unless you really, because you don't,
Unless you really want to.
Well, because a lot of times too, people like don't expect that they could have a kid who has complex issues.
Yep.
And I'm like, what? Luckily, I waited a really long time because I had lived with you for my whole life. And I was
True.
like, you can get a kid like Megan, and she will be your greatest
Wow.
joy and greatest excitement.
Good job.
But she is hard.
Good job. I was
She's
ready to bring it
hard.
back.
I
On
waited
that
because
note.
I knew.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay to say that too.
Yeah.
Right? Like
It
that's
is.
the thing you're not supposed to say as a parent. You're never supposed to say, that's all I'm saying, is you're never supposed to say like, this was really, really tough.
Yeah.
And so I hope that we can do that without shaming or shitting the kids and ourselves.
Yeah. Because
Because that's
relationships
the
are
part.
hard.
Yeah.
Like
they
that
are.
ultimately a parent relationship is ultimately a relationship. And like
Yeah.
relationships are not easy because you're bringing two completely different people together in one space, and it's hard. And it's already hard enough for ADHD people to have relationships. That's proven fact.
And
So
that
then
is another one of the challenges you have to decide, is relationships an issue for your kids. So we'll come back to that next time for sure. So
I'm excited to hear more, like for us to delve more into it. It's exciting.
Yeah, and I'm excited that you're getting more involved on the producing side. It's been really fun having this conversation with you, and also I really appreciate just your willingness to kind of like help me think it through, but also think it through from your standpoint, like from your own childhood to like now. And I just think it's really cool. So I'm excited to hear if people in our community are interested in this topic as much as people told us they were. So I hope that they are. And please keep asking questions, giving us feedback. Sometimes we get like whole pages of feedback from people and we love it.
Yeah. Let us know too, if like there's a better or a different way you'd like us to approach this subject. Cause we're just, spitballing at the moment. So I'm happy to look at it from different angles. So just let us know what you need.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I love you.
I love you too.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to the Spicy Brain podcast, brought to you by Spicy Brain Studios. We just started a new book called The Essential Guide to Raising a Complex Kid. And this week, we only scratched the surface of the first chapter. Next week, we're going to keep going with the 6 main challenge areas for complex minds, and you won't want to miss it. Make sure to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast app. And if you're enjoying the show, leaving us a review helps other neurospicy folks find their way here too. But until then, here's to a great end of the week. And remember to stay curious
and joyful
with radical acceptance. High kick. That was good.
Nice.